Hello, everyone. Welcome to TPS training. My name is Louis Weber with Behavior Care. In this segment, we are going to be taking a look at the W.Sum tab and also its companion tab, which is Pbis. Aptly named because that's what it is going to be doing. Pbis, Positive Behavior Intervention and Support. W.Sum is a useful tab for showing overall performance. Well, to anyone who wants to see it, but I was going to say to parents, it's a nice way to show progress on a weekly basis. But increasingly, I would like to see the W.Sum tab be used as part of the Pbis movement in schools, which is not a new idea, but still a good idea and one that needs to continue to be rejuvenated and extended. So let's take a look at what's going on here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and you can see that we have a classroom average, and here's Pete Moss's data, and Corey Anders and Rex Cars and so forth. I haven't entered any data in for those students, so I only have in the sample file Pete's data. But if we did have data for Corey, it of course would be displayed here, and the averages would be updated. So right now, the averages are the same as Pete's data because there's no other data entered. But it's nice to be able to say, how is your classroom doing on your increasing and decreasing target behaviors? As well as what we have here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger again, the paw, which is, now this sample is configured for Oak Park, so we have the Panther paws, and those are some bonus points that are being earned. And we also have INF, which is short for infraction, and then we have the total, and then we have the level system. Now I'm going to show you where all this comes from, or at least some of this, these level systems and how it connects to these percentages. But for right now, since I'm right here, I'm going to show you how this is computed. So it's 61% minus 7% for the decreasing target behavior, so increasing target averages across the four possible increasing targets of 61% for the week, minus the average of the decreasing target percentages, plus PAW percentages that have been earned, and I'm going to show you where that came from, minus infraction percentages, those are penalties, and when they're earned, they show up as red, is 61%. So that minus that plus that minus that is that percentage, and that puts the classroom in the blue group. And if we look over, of course, it would be for Pete, these are his blue groups. Now, these colors have been assigned to align with Oak Park's colors. Let's take a look at where this came from and how to set that up. As I scroll to the left here and I go into the Setup tab, we see these percentages in the middle. So the gold group would be any student who has a weekly percentage of 80% or higher. The blue group is 60% to 79.9%, and the gray is 40% to 59.9%. We could change these percentages. So we wanted the gray group to start, let's say, at 30%. You would just enter the 30% then. As simple as that. So just put in your percentage breaks however you see fit, and you can put different words here, and your words are limited by the space, so keep them on the brief side. So we could put gold group, for example, and keep it that way, or I just leave it as the color level. Colors are good for designating these different levels. Now here we see what a student can earn additional percentage points for, and they're called PAW dollars, but these are for purposes here, they're actually percentage points. And I'll show you how it gets converted to dollars in just a moment. So this, for example, if the student made a difference to Oak Park, they might get 5 bonus points, and that would be entered as PAW 5. Alternatively, if a student exhibited some level 3 infraction, and that is something that's detailed in a separate document, it's not part of Pbis, whatever you decide a level 3 infraction is. Hopefully we don't ever have to get to these higher level infractions. Student would stay down here. A level 1 infraction would be costing the student 1 percentage points. Now, these names are assigned right here. So if I wanted to use something else instead of infraction, I could put that name right there. And if I wanted to use something instead of pause, I could put right there. So let's say maybe I wanted to call them way to go points. And so when I hit enter or click away, it now revises that as my code name. And so let's just click it back to a pause. Okay, so that's how you set it up. The text here isn't really vital to what's going on here. The code names are what you're going to enter, and where do you enter that? You enter that into data entry. So let's see what's going on here. I'm going to make that just a little bit smaller, and we can see that on October 31st, Pete earned 8 PAW points. Let's scroll up to the top because I know I've got some other points here. Here, PAW 3 used diffusion in a successful situation. Diffusion is a technique that we'll talk about another time, but Pete earned 3 PAW points there. 4 PAW points were earned during specials and so forth. And as we scroll down, we're going to run into somewhere here. Let's see. Here we go. Infraction. Let's say of course, there's no values here. Let's say there was some verbal aggression. So let's say that that's the reason why. And we can say verbal aggression was particularly hurtful. And that was the reason why 2 penalty points were earned there. Now, why would we do that? Why would we have these PAW points and these infraction points when, as we go back to W.Sum, why don't we just rely on these increasing and decreasing target percentages? Why do we have these 2 columns? And the reason is so that we can affect a student's percentages more directly. I'm going to demonstrate that right here. I put a 3, but I'm going to go ahead and put a 4 right there. So let's say that the Pete's verbal aggression was very high. Now, Pete also had a bunch of zeros. He had 7 zeros for the day for verbal aggression, which is really great. And then on the last well, this is actually a transition. So during one of the transitions in the afternoon, Pete had a high amount of, very high amount of verbal aggression. I enter a 4 there. 4 only changes this percentage so much. It goes from, if it was all zeros, it goes obviously the 0 percentage for the day. So 1/4 given 8 academic or recording blocks goes to only 13%. And the reason why is because all of these other zeros are also calculated in the daily percentage. So that one value can only go to 4. But let's say I wanted to extend the scale. Now, one way to do that is by saying, well, given this particular situation, I'm going to extend the scale by taking 2 percentage points away from the weekly average. Now, when I put INF2, I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger and scroll over so we can see it. When I put INF2, that is going to take 2 percentage points off the weekly total, and it's not going to be averaged in, or it's not going to be for a more percentage style way to describe it, not going to be offset by all of these other zeros. The 4 is offset by these zeros, so that the 4 only puts 13% into the daily average. This is going to take 2 percentage points directly off. In fact, let's go take a look and let's see what date that was. So on 9/11, the week ending 9/11, those two infraction points, when we go back to W.Sum, the week ending 9/11, which would be 9/13, the end of the week in which 9/11 occurred would be 9/13. And so here are those 2 percentage points. So it's 51% minus 3, and this is now a minus 2. So it takes 2 percentage points directly off the bottom line. And they're not offset by any other zeros. So it allows you to extend the recording scale quite a bit. Alrighty, so that is how the infraction points and the paw points get to extend the scale a lot, not only because they directly contribute or subtract, add or subtract from these two columns, or the result of these two columns, but because the they can accumulate from various days or academic blocks. I'm going to illustrate that right now. On that same week, let's just scroll back to the data entry. And now I'm going to move to the right here. Oh, too much. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Okay, so let's say I wanted to say, well, Pete was doing really great. So I'm going to say paw and paw 3. And I'm going to say maybe there was another paw 3, and maybe there was paw 6, which would be adding quite a bit of paw bonus points. Now when we go back to W.Sum, Pete earned an additional 12% for that week, which contributes considerably. 51% minus 3 plus 12. And although he's still in the gray, he's getting close to being in the blue group. So let's say that it was Thursday. In fact, it would be Wednesday of that week, because the week ends on the 9/13. And let's say we go back and we say, Pete, right now you're at 58%. We need to be in the blue group in order to do this fun thing on Friday. And so let's scroll back here. And so let's say on the next day, Pete's having a great morning, and we'll give him another 5 points for that as bonus. And then when we go back, we see that now Pete is in the blue group because 60% is the criterion for that. So he has now bumped up into the blue group. Of course, we're going back to this random week. We would probably be looking at the most current week to have this conversation. Well, here's another example. He's at 79%. Let's say we say, Pete, we want to you want to do this really fun thing on Friday. That's for the gold group people, and you're at 79%, and 80% is where you're at. Now you had 4 infraction points, which brought you down to 79%. If you want, and let's go to 12/5, which would be Thursday. So let's just do that to finish up this example. Scroll this down a bit. All right, so it's 12/5. Well, we only have data for the second day here, so let's add some days. And let's just say we had a really great day, and uh, let's give 4% because during math he was fabulous. And then when we go back to our W.Sum, we see that Pete is now in the gold group. And so that is it's a way for us to give very valuable percentage points, positive or negative, to um, to move these the result of this addition or subtraction around quite a bit. It allows us to extend the scale quite a bit based on individual actions. It may not be, because here's a really important point, it may not be an increasing and a decreasing target behavior. In fact, what we like to do is when we look at our setup, these behaviors right here are civility squad behaviors. So how does civility squad link into all this? Well, you can get bonus points for showing civility squad behaviors. And that's a really nice thing to be able to do to support that in your PBIS program. Okay, so that is how W.Sum works. Now, if you go to print it, you'll note it's going to show first, well, it's one student per page plus the classroom average. So there's 13 pages. So if we wanted to print Pete's, which would be page 2, we would put print page 2 through page 2. That's how that would work. And it's nice to print that out and say, hey, Pete, let's look at your numbers and let's see where you've been. This kind of feedback to the student is really important. Okay, even more important to the student, aside from these numbers right here, is that these numbers, actually these numbers right here, the totals, these numbers are converted directly into dollars. Those dollars, well, in this case, they're paws, Panther paws. They're displayed on Pbis tab. And here's how they're displayed. So for the first week, $61. For the first week, 61 percentage points, which converts directly into dollars. So $61, $48, $59, and so forth. And that's displayed right here. Now, we don't see those individual dollar totals. What we do see is the running total that is available to Pete. So those numbers here are added cumulatively as a bank account, so to speak. And to keep it simple, we just add the resulting math total. The resulting sum is added. So 61 for the first week plus 48 for the second week is 109. Now here we go to the third week, Pete earned another $59. Now it's not showing that here because Pete spent $50. Now if I took that 50 out, we would see the result of adding the $59 right there. But when Pete spent some money, let's say $50, it now reduces his checking account balance on his Panther Paw totals, that is, to 118. So this, when we go to print it, it's one page for all 12 students with their totals, their running balances, and so when they go to the Panther store, which is called the Roar store for Oak Park, Pete is able to spend whatever these total dollars are. Now you can see he hasn't spent much money. He's saving up for that big bicycle. Maybe that bicycle was, let's say, 600 points or dollars, and he had saved up 600 of them, $600 through November. He bought the bicycle for $600 and now has $68 left. So what we do is you can print this out and go to the Roar store or whatever your store is called and manually write the numbers in here. Let's say it's December 6th. Pete has $143 to spend. We print out the sheet. It shows everything that's been spent up to this point. I manually write the number in on the sheet. And then when I go back to the classroom, I enter that number in. Let's say Pete spent $75 on something. I enter that number into TPS, and then it's part of the permanent record. And that is a very exciting new component for TPS for this school year is the um, utilization of the weekly sum as PBIS dollars that are displayed as a running total, like a checkbook balance on PBIS, so that students can very intimately experience the effect of their increasing target percentages minus their decreasing, I'm going to skip over to P, increasing target percentages minus their decreasing target percentages plus their PAW bonus points or whatever you end up calling them, minus the infractions for particularly inappropriate behavior, which gives them a total, and that these are total dollars that they have to spend uh, for each week, and they can add them up or save them up and spend them based on the prices of things in at Oak Park in the Roar store. So I hope you can take advantage of this, what I think is a really great technology and a way to have a feedback that's meaningful to the student based on their performance, because these increasing and decreasing target behaviors, when we go back to data entry, are of course increasing and decreasing target behaviors for uh, respect and on task and acceptance and responsibility, and the decreasing targets are various forms of aggression and out of assigned area behavior. So, very exciting. I hope you take advantage of this. I think it's a great opportunity to increase the feedback loop to the student in terms of PBIS. Okay, well, I think that's enough on that. So thank you for participating. Once again, Lewis Weber, TPS Training, and have a great day.